Hello, Star Wars fans. Mando Mitchie back today, and we're going to be going through a little bit of a restoration process on this action figure stand. And I'll talk a little bit about the history of this. I've never had this as a kid. Some people call this the mail-away stand, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But it is my understanding that that's true. It was a mail-away, but it was also sold in stores as well. And I was able to pick this up in a lot of just random kind of Star Wars, vintage Kenner Star Wars items, some boxes that were kind of beat up, and nothing in it was very nice. This looked like someone had it stuffed in an attic or something somewhere. There was no sticker and no cardboard backdrop at all. So I cleaned it up. And it looks like I've got just a little bit. It looks like there's a little bit of residual stuff right there. I need to do a little more cleaning. I think that looks like maybe that was some tape or something from years ago. But mechanically, all of these do work. But the real problem with this is you can see there's two of the foot pegs that are missing on here. So probably had figures on them, kids pulled them off, plastic was brittle, you know, the story, and broke those foot pegs off. So what I'd like to do is try to repair that. I found on this stuff patience is the key. I looked around, some of this stuff is available on eBay, some parts, but they're just horribly expensive. And I could go buy a whole reproduction of this. You know, I think somebody on Etsy was selling them for $175, $200, something like that, with the backdrop, all this new too. And so I'm not going to go pay $40 or $50 for a couple of pieces here just to make this work if I can help it. But what I found is, like, as you shop auctions and you look around at estate sales and Kenner parts, I've been able to pick up a lot of odds and ends pieces that, you know, some people have that they've kind of just held on to. And it's possible that, you know, I might even pop one of these out and try to 3D print the entire piece. And I've not looked for that file, but I could do that and then try to paint match as well, which is tough on this gray. I've had a lot of trouble matching this. It's kind of has a brown look to it as it's aged in that. But before I do all that, I want to try maybe a repair process. So what I've done is I've taken a couple of my action figure stands, and we'll see if we can get this. And I have cut that peg off of the stand. So for those two places, what I'm going to try to do is take my Dremel tool, and there's an uneven surface here where that plastic broke off and is uneven. I want to true that up, make sure it's flat. And then what my thought is, I could just glue those pegs on and then try to paint match that, which is one possibility. But another thing that I thought about was actually taking this and drilling a small pilot hole, and then taking a very small piece of like mechanics wire or something and drilling that pilot hole in this piece and in the peg. So it'd have to be pretty small and centered, and then gluing that wire, gluing the peg on, but having that wire to provide some more structure and strength, to where if you did use that peg, maybe it just wouldn't snap right off and be right back to where we were. So that's one thought. I don't know how it'll work. I think I'm going to try. I'm interested in that. So that's going to be part of this process. The other part, which is pretty easy, I will clean this up a little bit, but I was able to get a reproduction backdrop, and I know some of them actually that came out did not have this emblem, which is original. So I'm excited about this. This is an original scan. You can see even the General Mills Incorporated labeling right there, designation right there. So this is nice, and I'll list in the notes in the video description where I got this. And then I found the label. I was actually was going to try to make one of these at the makerspace that I'm a member of, but I found this on eBay, and yeah, it's pretty close, and I'm pretty happy with that. So we'll go in with the new decal, the new backdrop, repairing the pegs, cleaning up some of the residual adhesive that's left on there, and then hopefully in the end put those original 12 action figures that I have on there for display. And my thought is, at least initially, I'd like to have this on display in my work office. I have a shelf in mind picked out that I could actually, I don't do a whole lot of my vintage Kenner there. That's more of my modern and my dioramas, but I do bring in some from time to time. And so I think that I'll display this there. And then ultimately, as I build my Kenner display in my collection room here at my house, then I'll have this as part of that. So I'm going to have all the complete figures in a separate display case, and then I think I'll have another set of the original 12 in this around the A New Hope action figures and play sets and vehicles and beasts and that I have kind of in that era, because this is you know, an iconic piece of the beginning. You know, my parents didn't get me that mail away. I didn't get that coupon for Christmas that first year, but I did get the action figures as soon as they came out. So I was pretty spoiled looking back, having, you know, Death Star and Millennium Falcon and a lot of the other pieces that went with that. So no, I'm happy to have this. So we'll continue this process in bringing this back to a displayable condition. And I love restorations. I love this kind of stuff. So let's see what we can do, and I will continue to update in this video as we go along. All right, so making progress here. So got the repair done to the peg for the stand, and I kicked around some different ideas. So what I was thinking about doing was using 3D filament to maybe strengthen the peg, so drilling a hole into this piece and then into the peg 2 to give it just some reinforced, so it's just not glued flat surface to flat surface. So, but as I looked, that regular size filament versus the size of the peg was really too close, and really didn't leave enough room to do that. So what I did was went with a section of small wire, and this is what I always refer to as mechanics wire, so very small in size. So what I did was, without a drill, but just by hand. I don't have one of those like modeling little manual drill pieces yet. I want to get, that's one of my goals, to add to my set of tools. So I actually used just a drill bit and just manually just spinning that with my fingers. And what I did was scribed, I guess I scribed a, apologize for this look going on here, but I scribed basically a center punch starting point to take the pilot in, and then went in by hand and started that hole in the peg that I'd cut off of the action figure stand and in the piece on the mail away stand. So started that way, and then actually the plastic was soft enough in this piece, I just did that by hand. On the 3D printed stand that I'd had for the peg, it was a little tougher, so I did actually use the drill on that and was able to do that. So then what I did was cut off a very small section of that mechanics wire, inserted it into the stand, and with some just basic Loctite super glue. This is what I use for a lot of my repairs, and glued the wire into the mail away stand, and then put some glue on the bottom of the peg off of the action figure stand, and went in place with my tweezers. So that was the repair. Let me rewind though, something that I did before that. So before that, so I cut the peg off of the action figure stand, and then also I wanted a good mating surface, so I actually took my Dremel tool and just a standard abrasive bit that's not too aggressive. And I wanted to grind that surface flat, but I didn't want you to see grinding and scoring marks on the stand itself. So flattened that out very precisely, got that and kind of place fitted that peg on there to where it was going to sit flat. So I had to machine both of those surfaces so that they would mate well, and then drilled the hole. So yeah, so got all that done, and then put this on. And these pegs were black to start with, and I wouldn't say this is perfect. I wouldn't say the paint match is perfect, but for this application, I'm pretty happy with the way this turned out. So it does look complete now. And again, I'm going to display this in my office. So I'm happy with how that looked. And so what I will do is keep my eyes out. You know, like I said, I run into, you'll find part slots, pieces, Kenner stuff. Just I've seen this stuff around, and I kind of hold on to pieces and parts as I know that I'm going to have projects come my way. And then if I have friends or other collectors that, hey, I'm looking for this, I love to help people out. So a lot of trading, a lot of help there. And I look at just that aftermarket, and those prices are just insane. And I just can't see charging someone, you know, the price that I see this going for. So if I could help someone in that regards to complete a piece that's going to benefit their collection. So I'd love to help other collectors out, I guess, just to summarize in that. So what I did then was, once I was finished, I went with, tried to paint match. It's a little, maybe just a smidge darker than what I would hope after it dried. But again, just to looking at it, you can't really tell, but it's not a complete gray. There's a little bit in that plastic. Any of that Kenner era plastic did have, and I think it was just in that 70s time frame, like that earth tone brown was just it. And I don't know if this looked like this originally and they made it like that, or maybe it's some of the composition of the plastic as it kind of turns over time. But I did add with just this, what I typically use a lot of times on the Star Wars items is this elephant gray that I source from local Walmart or Hobby Lobby. And then I went in with just a touch of yellow, and this is cadmium yellow. So just to tint that a little bit, and brought it a little bit closer than just it was originally in just that standard gray. And then what I typically do is, after I paint anything, whether it's on an action figure, a ship stand, or whatever, just to kind of bring that gloss look that Kenner had, as I always go with some kind of varnish. And I've got a satin, but I also use this matte varnish from Vallejo. So anyhow, got that part done. So now what's next is I do have the reproduction sticker. I want to get this on, and then basically the cardboard insert. That's easy. So moving forward, we're going to get the sticker on next, and then work toward getting that those 12 original action figures on that, and getting that on display on the shelf. So let's keep moving along here. All right, the sticker is applied, and I'm really satisfied with how this turned out. So it's interesting to me in those early days how, with the information that Kenner had, they made the labels and just all this. So if you, like today, R2D2 would be capital R, the number 2, dash D2. And as you look at this, it's just, they just spelled that out, C3PO, just, you know. And then like the Tusken Raider was sand people. I mean, and just in its very basic form. And I can just imagine, you know, 1970, whatever, 77, 78. And, you know, Kenner gets this. There's a meeting in the corporate office in Cincinnati, Ohio. And it's like, hey guys, we're ramping up, and here's the information we have, and we got to get to work, and we got to make it happen quick. So they did the best they could with what they had. But man, I I love this. This is so reminiscent of that beginning of the saga of Star Wars, and then to me the saga is one thing, the movies and that, but then when we had the action figures to go with that, the playability and all that was just so cool. And I've said it so many times in my videos, but it's just, for me, it's a time machine, that sentimental bridge that takes us to that time and place. So really, really cool. Love the backdrop. Again, if you're interested in these items that I got for this, I'm going to put those in the video notes. So with the eBay stores and those sellers, if they still have them, so you guys can go and purchase this as well. So, all right, next up is going to be my work office display shelf with these 12 action figures on display. So let's get going on that part. Okay, here we are. So very satisfied having this thing full of figures and being ready to be displayed in my work office. So yeah, these are all original Kenner figures. They're not the best that I have. These are more placeholders, diorama pieces that I didn't want to take anything from my original run that I'm wanting in my complete display case. So I didn't take the best of the best, but these are decent. So I will, as I'm continually upgrading and improving and finding better versions, I will probably want to get some really pristine and nice figures, but these will always be kind of that step down from what I've got in my run of the 96. So, looking at that, you can see like, yeah, we're missing accessories. I had some accessories I could have brought with them, but I didn't want a chance losing guns or anything like that. I just wanted the figures for display. And that Jawa, actually, I picked him up at he's original Kenner, but his robe is reproduction. So yeah, no, but I actually just really love having this. So I'm going to put it on the shelf where it's going to reside for now. And yeah, this has been a cool project. I'm glad, it was a marketplace find, and I bought it with a bunch of stuff. Like there was a Empire Strikes Back Millennium Falcon box, this stand by itself, a Dagobah playset. There was like Land of the Jawas playset base. There was like that Hoth Land of Hoth, like that AT-AT kind of. I don't remember the exact name of it, but that box, and it was real ratty. So a lot of it wasn't good, but some very valuable pieces in there. The Falcon box was nice, and the Dagobah playset was really nice. So yeah, so I'm glad that I got this. And as I was doing a little bit of research, I wanted to make sure that my terms were correct. And I do not claim to be an expert at vintage Star Wars. I would never claim. I've got a ton to learn. But for my research on this was the 1978 mail-away stand. So this was the second ever Kenner Star Wars mail-away program. So they had the first mail-away where you got the 4 figures and like a cardboard stand. And I've not seen one of those in person. I've read and know a little bit about this, but this was the second time. This would have been in 78, so that next year. And this stand was something that you could send off to put these original 12 in. So yeah, I love the artwork to it. It's so cool. As they were still all just figuring all this stuff out, and Kenner was, just ramping up production and, basically changing history of the way toys would be made and collectors would collect, and just something. And it was so cool to me just to be a part of that, in that time frame. So I'm very thankful to have seen the original Star Wars in the theater in that time frame. So that's very, very cool. So yep, so the 1978 mail-away stand restoration is complete. I will do some work on getting some maybe a little better versions or some accessories for these guys, but it's pretty solid. I can't complain. So I'm happy to have this. So let me get it on the shelf, and I'll show you where it's going to reside. All right, here it is on the shelf on display in my work office. Thrilled to have that. So if you're not a subscriber, would you consider subscribing to the channel? It helps, as I relay information and produce content and diorama, just Star Wars and world building, customs, all the things that I really, really love to do. The restoration part, like I did on this. So if you subscribe, you're going to be notified when I actually when I release new content. And if you would that always helps to let me know that there are people watching. And if you've not looked at my channel, would you consider looking at the library? There's my Vintage Kenner playlist. You'll see different collection videos that I've done, restorations and that, which is really cool. And then there's some other stuff. Give you just a peek if you've not seen. Here is my carbon freeze chamber, just some stuff. And then we go up into the Mandoverse. I did a short on this not too long ago, so love the Mandalorian, love that media. My sail barge that I just 3D printed this winter. Man, I love this thing. I'm getting ready to do some updates on this as I'm filling it out, and I've got just getting those figures. I'm working on this skiff right now, and it's kind of in pieces over here, but there's a Sarlacc pit that's coming along. So so that I've got my Battle of Hoth diorama. Love that thing. That was the first diorama that I built, and I've redone it since then, but very, very cool. Just some placeholders right now, some Clone Wars stuff. Jabba's Palace. Man, how much fun was that? Assembling that and getting that put together. So that was really, really cool. I've got just some of my figures up here. You can see I've got some of my vintage collection stuff up mounted around. Just some figures that I'm just kind of into right now. And then one of my favorite things, my twin Death Star diorama that I built. And you'll see a playlist on that in the video on that as I did that. And then my Falcon, just some other cool stuff that I have. And again, scrolling around, sail barge. So yeah, this is my stuff that I get to look at every day when I'm at work. So again, we were here talking about that mail away 1978 mail away stand. So thankful to have that. Again, like and subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching. This is Mando Mitchie. God bless you all, and we'll see you down the road next time on another video. I'm signing